Welcome to Compounding Change, the podcast where small actions lead to big results. I'm Shannon Davis, a financial advisor who works closely with firefighters, police officers, and others to help plan strong retirements and build financial security. But this podcast goes beyond finances. Twice a month, I sit down with incredible individuals who are making a difference, one step at a time. Whether they're running a business, contributing to health and healing, or raising funds for impactful causes, these stories remind us that meaningful change doesn't happen overnight. It's the little things, those small, consistent actions that create better health, wealth, and lives. My goal is to bring you topics and conversations that benefit every aspect of your life, whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or a fresh perspective, you'll find it here. Because compounding isn't just for finances, it's for life. Let's start building something better, little by little, together.
This is the Compounding Change Podcast, sharing stories of small but meaningful changes that compound into amazing impact. Brought to you by Shannon Davis and DavisCompoundingChange.com. Change happens fast. Take advantage. Discussions on this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to DavisCompoundingChange.com or this podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Davis.
Welcome to Compounding Change. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us reach more people and spread the word about the power of small changes. Everyone has a story to tell, and I'd love to hear yours. If you have a story to share or a topic you'd like to hear about, reach out and contact me. Let's keep the conversation going. So today, I have the pleasure of talking with Bill Matthews. Bill is the OAPFF state representative for Muscular Dystrophy Association, also known as MDA. Bill has served with Canton Professional Firefighters Local 249 for 30 years before retiring in 2021. Every year that Canton Professional Firefighters has participated in the annual Fill the Boot campaign, he's stood out on street intersections collecting for the cause. In 2008, his passion and dedication to this cause elevated him to the position of MDA coordinator within his union. Then, in 2017, he stepped into his current role as the OAPFF state representative for MDA. Hi, Bill.
Good morning, Shannon. It's nice to be with you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. I'm excited to learn more about your role and the impact of MDA and how this incredible organization continues to make a difference in the life of so many. I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you is because, you see you guys on the street corners and you see that boot and then you just throw money in and you're giving to a good cause. But I don't think, at least I didn't, and I don't think I'm alone in this, that I didn't know all the impact of it. I just kind of knew that I was doing a good thing, throwing a few bucks in the boot. But can you just shed some light on when MDA started and what the purpose of it is?
Sure, Shannon, I'd be happy to do that. MDA started 71 years ago in 2020. It's been 71 years in 2025. The whole program basically started, for those people that have never really heard the story of it, it all began in 1952 when there was a gentleman named Charles Crowley, and he had a child that was affected by muscular dystrophy. Charlie approached his good friend George Graney, who at the time was a member of the Boston Firefighters Local 718, and he asked for some help. So most of the time, firefighters, as you well know, were happy to get out of the fire station, do some good, be in the community, etc. And so he took to the streets with some of his local firefighters. And back in the day, instead of having boots, they used coffee cans. And when they did that, they went neighborhood to neighborhood and they started asking for money and for donations. And back then, Boston firefighters in 1952, they raised over $5,000 for their efforts. And the response was overwhelming. It spread to other towns. And that is literally when the MDA became a thing for firefighters.
Oh, wow. So what motivated you to get involved? Was it just being out there and seeing it, or did something happen in your life that made you more active in the cause?
Well, as a youngster growing up in northeastern Ohio back in the day, my mom was very, very active in the March of Dimes, which at that point in time, my sister was born, and if I remember correctly, she was like 4 months premature. And at the time when she was born, they gave her less than a 1% chance to live.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she went from womb to an incubator to every day that we weren't even allowed to visit her at the hospital because they were so afraid of her getting infection, et cetera, and it literally killing her.
Wow.
So as she got stronger and as she got healthier, literally 6 months later, she finally came home. And at that point, my mom became extremely involved in it, in the March of Dimes. So I'm sure at some point in there, the ability and the realization of her going out and raising money for the March of Dimes, when I joined the fire department and saw the need and the guys going out on the streets, et cetera, I said, you know what, there's a part of me that wants to be involved with this.
Nice. Nice. So you were obviously active all during your career, but then
Yes,
you
ma'am.
continued on past that because the passion was still there, or you got roped into it.
Well, it's kind of a little bit of both, Shannon, to be honest with you. When I originally started doing it back in 1991, we stood out in the street with our boots, and the horse and buggy people would drive by and we'd ask them for money. And so we did it for a few years, and then for any number of reasons, the gentleman that was doing the MDA stuff for the City of Canton Fire Department, he quit. So there was a couple, 3 years where nobody was doing it, and I was like, hey, this is a really good cause. I did a little bit of homework, realized the ins and outs of it, and said, you know what, we're going to start this back up. And I was pretty adamant at union meetings to get guys to get involved, etc. And we started doing it again.
Nice. Well, and I guess I was also surprised. I shouldn't be, but I know that you have also done the golf fundraiser, so it extends beyond just fill the boot. There's other fundraisers, and then at a union meeting, I recall that there was reference to, I mean, utilizing any fundraiser for it. So it's not just specific to a golf outing or fill the boot. Is that correct?
That's correct. The boot drive, because it was accepted by the IAFF as their national fundraising charity of choice, MDA, then the boot drive is the single biggest thing that people see us out on the street. So if a local union does a bar crawl, or if a local union does a golf outing, etc., then that's pretty limited to the people that go to those events. But when we actually physically get out on the streets and we can interact with the community, that is the number one goal, because it shows that the firefighters are out there. It shows, the ability to get to communicate with the citizens, etc., and the community, and therefore it's just a one-on-one relationship a lot of time when those people pull up and they're putting money in the boot, and we can answer questions quickly and efficiently with them.
So is that just specific to a certain time of year then?
Now, depending on the locals, the most excuse me, most of the locals will try to do it in the beginning of the summer when it's a little bit cooler out, and or towards the fall when we get towards Labor Day.
I recall seeing it be right around Labor Day. So you do it the whole weekend or whatever they commit to.
Yes, ma'am. Most of the locals will try to do it a Friday, Saturday, and even on a Monday of Labor Day weekend if they can, because that just seems to be a good time of year to do it.
Nice. So would that Fill the Boot be the largest fundraiser that MDA has then, or are there others that top that?
No, at this point in time, nationwide, Fill the Boot raises more money than any other event that the locals will do. Honestly, mostly because the fact of the matter is, if you can get folks, firefighters, on a corner of a busy intersection and people are driving by, per hour totals, then that's the quickest and most efficient way to raise money. When you do golf outings, there's certainly expenses to those. If you do a bar crawl, etc., there's expenses to those. But when you do Fill the Boot, there really is not an expense for a local union to get involved and do that. They're just going out and standing on the streets and And it's just their time. They're donating their time.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we've got a lot of homeless who have adopted that theory too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what kind of, and I'll get off the topic of money and get more to the cause, but what type of funds are being raised and how has that increased over the years?
Well, let's just put it this way. Since the beginning of MDA's relationship with, I'm sorry, with the beginning of the IAFF's relationship with MDA, going back that 70 years, there's been over $720 million raised that has gone towards research, care centers, summer camp, and just in fact the advocacy of MDA.
Wow.
You and I take it for granted, just real quickly. If we go and we decide to fly somewhere on an airplane, that's not doesn't take us much to walk down the ramp and get on an airplane, and we're good to go. But the advocacy part of it is very, very important, where MDA has partnered with some of the airlines, et cetera, to try to make it a little more friendly for some folks that are wheelchair bound, et cetera, and that do want to go places. And the advocacy has been pushing to change some of the regulations, et cetera, to help folks that do have some health issues get on some airplanes and fly around and travel like the rest of us do.
That's awesome. So does that extend beyond just MDA then with what MDA is trying to accomplish or who they want to help?
Yes. The different organizations nationwide are doing, there's different parts of MDA that will do different things, not only from the parts of the research and the care centers, et cetera, but the advocacy too. And another nice thing, and I brought up the care centers a second ago, and I may be a little off topic here with you, but
No.
when we think about going to the doctor, you and I, again, we get in the car, we go to a doctor, and we go see our primary care physician, and we're done. It's not a big deal. And then maybe tomorrow you go to the dentist. But for a lot of these folks, just the simple fact of being put into a wheelchair, put into a vehicle, taken somewhere, that's a lot of work for them. It's a lot of work for their caregivers. And quite honestly, it's a lot of work for everybody. So throughout the nation, there are 8 locations in Ohio, as a matter of fact, where doctors who do practices of all types of medicine a patient can go there, and if you will, if they need to see and I'm just saying a cardiologist, they can set all their appointments in one day at one center, and they
Oh,
can go in and see their cardiologist. They could see their podiatrist. They could see any of a number of specialties that they need to see in one day at one place, and everything's all done in one visit. Which
oh,
again, you and
that's
I take
great.
for granted being able to go, but now they're knocking it all out in one day.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful that somebody is trying to coordinate that and make it more convenient because yes, that is very difficult for the caregivers as well, trying to get somebody to all those appointments as I've dealt with my mother-in-law who recently passed. I didn't have to do it full time, but I just know how difficult getting people to appointments is.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
So
It's a
yeah,
nightmare.
yeah. So what type of and maybe this is beyond the scope, but what type of research and I know that you've laid out the benefits of the conveniences or accommodations for this, but what type of strides are we taking to, I don't want to say
Um,
cure it, but
yeah.
improve health.
Well, let's just put it this way. Since 1954, when the IAF became an MBA national partner, I just wanted to bring this up too while we get there. So Boston started everything in 1954. Then in 1955, the IAF had actually approved at their 1954 conference that MDA would be their national partner and their preferred choice of charity. Okay. So in 54, we started all this. And then as of the money being raised, funding, et cetera, the first FDA approved treatment for ALS was in 1996. So for all those years of money being raised, research being done, et cetera, we had an approval for a treatment for ALS.
Wow.
Then in 2007, the money that was some of the money that's been raised. And again, with all the research, et cetera, and even including gene therapy back in 2006, the first FDA approved treatment was approved for some different drugs. And then as of 2020, there have been 18 FDA approved treatments. So everything's slow. The research takes time. But from 2020 on, we have had these 18 FDA approved treatments. So where we only had one up to 1996, then they've increased slowly, and we're at the point of having those 18 different approved treatments.
Wow. It's amazing to me that that's all also recent. This has been, the fundraising's been so long, and I guess that goes back to exactly what I'm talking about is the little steps and the little changes. But that's just, I can't believe that we're all just in the 2000s that we've reached some of these strides. You'd think that it have happened longer ago than that, but that's amazing. It's a great time to be alive, right?
Yep, it's a great time to be alive. And you know what? I also always try to bring up, and this is there's a family that used to live up in the Akron area, and the kids are a little bit older. They're teenagers now, but a few years ago, and this is just an example of the money that's raised. There's a drug called Spinraza, and that drug, which took forever and a day to get approved by the FDA, was finally approved, and we're in 2025 now. So, and I may be off on a couple of years here, but it was probably around 2020 when these kids were finally able to get this drug, Spinraza. They were getting it 4 times a year to help slow down their diseases. And at the time, the cost was $250,000 per injection per child, which they were getting 4 times a year.
Wow.
So that's $1 million a kid that they were spending to give these guys it didn't cure their issues, but what it did is it slowed down to the disease incredible enough that where they are still able to do things that normal kids do.
Wow.
And it's just a wonderful thing for them.
So with all the fundraising, that helps families like that with the cost as well, not just creating the drugs, it's helping.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes, that money will go to them. And also to, again, some of the clinical trials, et cetera, that people will have to go through. At that point, there is no charge to those families because there are some clinical trials, which helps quite a bit. But again, it always goes back to the research. It always goes back to the amount of time that had to be spent in somebody way smarter than me figuring out things, doing gene therapy, doing things, et cetera, to take a drug forward, to get it to the point where they can actually use it on individuals and see if it works, because it's all theory.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. Yeah, well beyond my scope.
Me too, girl.
Yeah. What other things that maybe you've been asked questions through the years? Maybe there's just something that you want people to know about, or that you can shed light on for us. What am I missing?
Well, I would tell you this, probably the biggest question I ever get asked is, okay, well, I'm giving you $1. Where's that dollar go to? Okay. And with MDA, we're extremely proud to say that 70 cents on every dollar that's raised goes directly to treatments, advanced access to care and clinical trials, the advocacy, etc. Okay? And that's amazing, because too many of these charities out there, you'll find, and if you do your homework and you read about it, some CEO somewhere's making, $10 million a year, etc. And your fundraising is going to pay for that guy's salary.
Right.
So 70 cents is going to actually go towards the research, the treatment, etc. 25 cents on that dollar supports the fundraising initiatives such as supplies, stickers, T-shirts, and then the last 5% supports management and general expenses.
Wow.
So at this point here, we're giving 70% on the dollar to the research, etc. and there are actually charities out there that give less than 20 cents on the dollar after their expenses. So we're really, really proud of that. Um, and over the last couple of years, certainly with COVID, et cetera, there was a lot of changes. A lot of the offices closed nationwide, et cetera, where we had folks that were support group coordinators, et cetera. But now everything is trying to be centralized to the point where we're, again, trying to save some money because we don't have the brick and mortar expenses like we did over the years.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there's maybe some good that came out of COVID with people being more conservative with the spending with the brick and mortar buildings. But that's a good point though that you brought up about doing your research on causes that you want to support, because I think a lot of times we think we're doing the right thing. I know I've had that mentality. Well, I'm I've put my heart in the right place. I'm giving it, what will be will be. But if you're not actually supporting the cause that you want to support, then it's just in somebody else's pocket. So that's great that MDA gives so much of it back.
Yeah, and that's important too because, again, in today's day and age, you read things every day online that you give $1 to some charity and you find out later on that 99% went into some guy's pocket, and maybe the 1% actually went towards a charity, and that's just not right. I don't care what it is; it's just wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So what's next? Are you continuing this mission for years to come, or do you have is there an end game? Is there something else that you've got big on the horizon? Are you still, I know you do the Canton Firefighters, the golf outing that's every summer, is it?
Yeah, we do it once. Canton Fire golf outing is once a summer,
Okay.
one time in the summer. Fortunately, just because obviously I've been retired for 3 years from the fire department, we have somebody else that has finally stepped up, and they're going to be in charge of be the MDA coordinator for Canton Fire Local 249.
All
But
right.
certainly in my role, helping Dakota Fisher, who's the gentleman that's going to be taking that over, he's still learning a little bit, trying to understand everything. And it's kind of the same thing that I get to do statewide when there's a local that decides they're going to get back up and running with MDA, or they really want to just go forward with MDA. They'll call me with questions, and I'm certainly able to either visit them at a station or talk to them by phone, or even do some Zoom meetings now and then to try to explain to them some of the things they can do to help with and continue to build relationships with MDA and locals throughout the state of Ohio.
That's awesome. I think that what struck me at one of the meetings when I heard about it is I just kind of thought that it was a national thing that everybody just went out and did, and I didn't realize about that it was each local kind of adopting in the fundraising portion of it. I just kind of thought it was a blanket across the board. Everybody just did this. So obviously I learned that was wrong.
Well, I think what happens too, Shannon, is you learn over the years, and quite honestly, like we talked about at the beginning of this, fill the boot from a strictly financial standpoint is going to get firefighters out in the community, and we're going to raise more money in a shorter period of time doing that than literally proven time and time and time again over and over other events.
Yeah.
If you do the celebrity bartenders, if you do a cornhole tournament, nowadays what's coming around is pickleball tournaments. So if you do a pickleball tournament, yes, you're going to raise money, absolutely, and have fun. But and again, everybody's time is valuable. And to set up an event that's going to take an entire day, that you've got guys out there at the golf outing, let's say, and we've spent 8 hours at the golf outing then, by the time you do everything. If you took that same 8 hours and put the same 4 guys on on a corner in the city, again, fundraising wise, we're going to raise a lot more money, and we're seen by the public.
Yep. Yep. Well, I know just wanting to talk to you led me to look into MDA more, just because I was interested in it. I've seen you at many union meetings. So I know we've talked over the years, but I'm embarrassed to say I didn't actually know everything that you've even shared today or after looking into it. Where can people find more information?
Well, me personally, if they go to the Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters website, there is a link on that for MDA. So all of my personal information is there, my contact information, albeit my cell phone number and my email. And
Okay.
so if they have any questions about MDA, and or if they're from a local in the state of Ohio and they're interested in getting back out to do stuff with MDA, I'm certainly happy to talk to them and point them in the right direction.
Great.
So,
What if we get to expand beyond Ohio and our reach with this podcast goes into the other states? Where should they reach out to?
well,
Can they
each state,
call you?
yeah, they can still call me, and certainly MDA has some district coordinators throughout the nation. And if I can't help them personally, I will send them to the right human to get them in the right direction.
Great. Well, I moved from Colorado, and I know that there's connection to Colorado, right? From
Yes, Heather Miller, who's the 8th District representative for MDA, she covers Ohio and Illinois and this part of the country here. But again, once we closed those brick and mortar locations where we had the offices locally where people could call Columbus or Cleveland or Cincinnati, then certainly my job became a lot more important because let's face it, somebody in Toledo, they don't always want to call somebody out in Colorado. They want to
Right.
call somebody from Ohio and ask them questions.
Yeah.
And that's where I become involved.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you're doing a great thing, and I always enjoy seeing you at union meetings, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time out. And I know you're in Florida and enjoying a little bit more warm weather than what we have right now in Ohio. Are you playing pickleball?
Yes, I try to as much as I can.
All right.
I'm getting old. I got a hip problem. So, sometimes I can't play as long as I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will tell you, Shannon, and when you asked, what some things that hold for me in the future here, I will bring this up. And I'm working with some folks actually out of Canton Fire, and they're establishing a organization called SAD Team 6.
Okay.
And what SAD Team 6 is going to be, basically, there is unfortunately a lot of PTSD in the fire service and in the police organizations, and suicide, etc., mental health issues. It's happening. And with this organization, they are going to try to bring that out to the forefront, let people be made aware of it, that it is an issue throughout both of those organizations. And just like folks in the military that see things that most humans don't want to see, and that happens in both police and fire. So that's in its. We just started this about 2 months ago, and it's we're working our way through it. And there's going to be some events, but we can talk about that, you and I, in the future.
Absolutely.
And, it's an absolute necessity in society nowadays. The old days of suck it up, Henry. It's just deal with it. It doesn't work that way anymore. And even for an old guy like me to say that, I'm understanding the the issues that people have with PTSD, et cetera, in the fire service and with the police, et cetera. And I think it's going to be a very positive influence and a good cause going forward.
That's great. At the one of our meetings, there was a gentleman there who I'd love to talk to him, but who wrote a book, and I've been reading his book, and it just sheds light on what you guys deal with. And again, just like I was surprised at some of the transitions or some of the growth of MDA, and you just said in 2020 the 18 drugs that are being approved, and that's so recent. I'm also surprised at the lack of support just a short while ago for PTSD and for the trauma and everything that you guys see out there in your jobs. So that's great that you guys are bringing something more support. I know that it's out there, but I don't think it's as accessible or understood as it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe the word, I don't know if accepted is the right word. Again, when I first got hired in the fire department back in the early 90s, the world doesn't know it's your first day at the fire department. And the world doesn't care that you've never seen death, trauma, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are guys that literally on their first day of the job or their fourth day on the job, you're going to run into and you're going to see things that, quite frankly, you probably weren't prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects everybody different. And I know some of the things I saw as a cadet in the first couple of years in the fire service that he was like, oh my God in heaven, I'm looking at this, and you're going like, well, and then somebody would say, hey, it's part of your job. Just go home and don't worry about it. But you go home to kids and you've seen kids and you put the two and two together and say, that could have been my kid.
Yeah.
And it's going to play, it's going to play with your emotions and your head, et cetera. And certainly in today's world, it is way worse than anybody ever imagined. And it's been brought to the forefront. And it's something that definitely is, it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. I think people think that it is your job. And so you're hardened and you create that. I mean, with doctors, with anything. But we're still all human. And
exactly.
It still affects you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Compounding Change. Remember that big results come from small, consistent actions. Until next time, take care, keep moving forward, and let's keep building a life filled with better health, wealth, and purpose.
This is the Compounding Change Podcast, sharing stories of small but meaningful changes that compound into amazing impact. Brought to you by Shannon Davis and DavisCompoundingChange.com. Change happens fast. Take advantage. Discussions on this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Retirement Plan Advisors LLC, a federally registered investment advisor. Cambridge Investment Research and Retirement Planning Advisors are not related to DavisCompoundingChange.com or this podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Davis.